Okay, we're live.
Okay, everybody seems to have been let in. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our members meeting. We're very glad you're here. This is our opportunity to tell you a little bit about what we've been working on, who we are, those kinds of things. But mostly it's an opportunity to hear from all of you and to be able to respond to any questions you have, as well as pose a few questions to you. The order of events is that we will make a small presentation telling you who we are and what we've been working on. I'm not sure the slide. Okay, Jenny is sharing the screen, and so you should be able to see that. And I will now turn the floor over to Jenny Wustenberg. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I'm unmuted. I couldn't unmute myself just now. Can you hear me? Great. Okay, hello everyone. It's great to see you. We thought that since we are hoping that there are some new members in the audience, that we might start with just talking a little bit about the background story to the MSA, just in case you didn't know how it happened exactly, that we actually exist. So let me actually share properly. So we are, as most of you know, a relatively young organization. We were founded in December 2016 in Amsterdam at our first conference, which was actually not planned as a Memory Studies Association conference. But Aline and I had planned it as a relatively small meeting, and there was such a demand for coming together as memory scholars that we realized we have a gap here and a huge opportunity. So we've then got people together and founded the association. And as you can see in the image there, Aline registered the association officially in Maastricht in June 2017. And we then grew very, very quickly. So the Copenhagen conference in 2017 was already much larger, about 650 people. Then Madrid was even bigger, about 1,500 people. And then Charlottesville, of course, we don't know how big it would have been, but it was a basically fully organized conference led by Jeff Oleg and the rest of the conference team there. So now we are gathering virtually in Warsaw, and I think the team in Warsaw have done an amazing job of actually making us feel a little bit like we're there in that place, and we're over 1,000 attendees at this conference. And I don't know how you feel. We want to hear from you at the end, but so far I've heard really good feedback about how it's been going as a virtual conference. So to tell you a little bit about how we are organized, you can see here the structure of the association and the governance, basically the yellow boxes here and the pink boxes are what is elected directly by the MSA membership. So now that you're a member, you have the right to participate in elections, and we have just changed our structure slightly. Right now, we're still in a transition period where Jeff Oleg, Aline Zierp, and myself, and at the moment also Hannah as a maternity interim president, helping out while Aline is on maternity leave. We are a team of presidents, but we are now moving to this team that you see here, the structure where we have a president-elect, and that is Sarah Gensberger, of course. We are jointly the three presidents, but as we move out, there will only be one president, and then we are electing a new president-elect next year. who will then become president a year after that, if that makes sense. We also have an executive committee of 6 members, and 2 members will be elected every year. So there will be another election early next year for that. We are also electing an ethics committee and a finance committee, and I'll talk more about that later. But as you can see, we also have other parts of the MSA that you can get involved in: working groups, regional groups, and various committees, and as well as the local conference committee every year. And I'll talk a little bit more about these different areas now. So that's us. I've already introduced us. We're the co-president team. And Sarah will take over as the main president next year, next summer, 2022, at which point the 3 of us will become past presidents. Now, we just want to take a moment to give a giant thank you to the outgoing executive committee: Steph Krabs, Alicia Salomone, Francisco, or as we know him, Paco Ferrandis, and Thea Simbeck Andersen. They've done an amazing job. Steph has been involved in all kinds of things, from doing the book prize, the first book award of the MSA, mentorship committee, website committee. Has been involved in all kinds of things. So he's done an amazing amount of work. Alicia has been involved mainly with the centers, liaising with memory study centers around the world. Paco has run the DMSA, our new digital platform, and Thea has been liaising with the working groups and regional groups and national networks. So we want to just give a big round of applause for Julie, for them. We now have a new executive committee. 2 of the members of the new committee, Hannah and Joanna, are here. Of course, you know them, and they've been part of the previous executive committee, so they're going to be here for another year. And then we have 4 brand new members. Catherine and Magdalena are going to be with us for the next 3 years, while Yelena and Seung-Yoon are there for 2 years. So as you can see, we have the staggered structure. So every year, 2 people will be replaced through an election. And we just want to make you aware that we publish the agendas of our meetings as well as the minutes on our website. So if you want to know what's going on, or if you want to tell us something or get engaged or visit our meeting, you're very welcome to do that, and just let us know. Then we have a nominations and regulations committee. 4 amazing people and scholars who I'm sure I don't need to introduce to you: Astrid L., Bill Hurst, Anne Rigney, and Michael Rothberg, and they've done a fantastic job, identifying candidates and persuading people to get engaged. And they're thankfully going to stick around for a while and help us with the next round of elections as well. So we thank them for all of the work they've done. And then we have an ethics committee, and the role of the ethics committee is basically, kind of safety mechanism. If something happens that needs, adjudication or discussion, they're there to do that, so that it's not all in the hands of, in our hands. And they also help with things like figuring out what the criteria are for giving out travel awards or conference fee waivers, which was what we did for this conference. They're now up for election, so this is one great way for you to get involved, is to run for the ethics committee or the finance committee, which until now was Jennifer Dixon and Hans Lauge Hansen, and they basically audit the finances of the association. So again, that's up for election, and a big thank you for all of these people for giving us their time and energy. And then we have a giant advisory board. Obviously, I'm not going to read out these names, but if you look at the list here, we have a very diverse set of scholars, and we ask them for advice, as the name suggests, right? We consult them when we're facing challenges, and we try to take advantage of their networks as well. So if you have suggestions who should be in this list, please let us know. You can also find this on our website. And then, as you all know, the backbone and where all the exciting stuff, not all the exciting stuff, but a lot of the exciting stuff happens in the MSA are the working regional and national groups. We have now grown, I think between Madrid and now, we've added 4 working groups. And I've just taken the word memory out of all of these titles for the working groups, but you can see how diverse they are, what all, lots of different interesting topics. We have lots of regional groups and also national networks. So if you want to join, you can do that via our website, or if you would like to found something new, there's also information on our website about how to do that. Or you can just send one of us an email and just run an idea by us. We're always happy to get those ideas. And then I just want to have a big prominent thank you for our amazing assistants, Lorena and Angus, who you probably saw a lot this week because they've been helping us with the conference a lot, but they keep us going all the time throughout the year, not just during the conferences, and they do an amazing job, and we would be completely lost without them. So thank you, Lorena and Angus. And I think now I'm handing over to Aline to continue. I'm going to keep doing the slides.
Yes, indeed. So my task is to tell you a little bit of what we've been doing in the last 2 years, really since Madrid, which kind of projects the MSA is running, and what our future ideas are, at least partly. So one of the programs we have is the internship program, for example. Here you see 5 of our last interns who have been working with us in the last year. There's the names on the left, and they've done a really good job of like coming in with new ideas and just realizing certain projects. What we usually try to do is give them 1 or 2 specific projects to work on so that they really get to know one specific angle from in depth. And they've been really good in just, giving us new input. So if you have students, for example, or if you're interested yourself in doing an internship with the MSA, then just contact us and we will see what we can do for you. Next slide. These are our finances. I thought I'd give you a little bit of an overview of the last year, which was 2020. So 2021, I can only give you a rough estimate, especially of the conference costs. But to give you an idea of how our fees look like, last year was a bit special in a way because we didn't have a conference. So that gave us a chance to build up, if you so want, a bit more than we usually would have had. And some numbers are obviously a little bit special in the sense we have membership and conference fee, which were around 30,000, but then we had to actually give 12,000 back because of the cancellation of the Charlottesville conference. We managed to fundraise quite a little bit, and we still had 84,000 left from the previous year. So to just explain you the numbers on the left, which gives us a total of 144,000. The expenses in 2020 were mainly this conference cancellation, which cost us a lot of money, of course, which is basically giving back the fees that people had already paid. Another big expense is the website. That includes, of course, all the work that goes into it, but also all the plugins, running it, etc. Then for the first time, we had a charge, which was the assistance charge. So up to now, we didn't have any paid staff members. Now, since last year, November, we actually have 2 assistants that are getting a small salary. They're only working a few hours per week for us, but it's already a huge relief to have that. So that's an expense that will continue. And of course, we invested in the working groups and the regional groups, and that is an expense that will go up in the next years as the regional groups and the working groups are getting more active and also getting bigger. Okay, next slide. Oh, sorry, I actually wanted to say something about 2021 where we don't have a slide. And I just wanted to give you an estimate of like how much this conference costs, because I think some people are interested in that. So basically, this is all estimates because of course the final numbers are not in yet, just to give you a little bit of an idea. The conference team did an amazing job in fundraising. So 34,000 were actually raised in income. So this was all funding that came from outside, and the conference fees amounted to about 35,000. So people, money that you paid to to get access to the conference. But then the conference itself cost us 70,000. So we are basically breaking equal if more or less this remains as it is. The biggest cost was the drifter cost, of course, having everything in place, technology, etc., which cost us around 40,000. Generally speaking, the outlook, I think we managed to build up a quite solid financial cushion, which is very nice, but it's still not enough to have a permanent hired staff or something like that. We are already glad that we have the 2 assistants that are being paid a couple of hours per week. Of course, in the future, this is one of the big challenges. We are going to talk about the challenges, but having a bit more of a stable income and having a bit bigger cushion, if you so want, that would also allow us to maybe pay someone who can take care of the everyday activities of the MSA. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is some of our projects. You probably all are aware of the fact that we have subscription to Memory Studies, the journal. So if you're a member of the Memory Studies of the Memory Studies Association, you have free access to Memory Studies. Some of you have institutional access, but many of you don't. So if you're a member, you actually get Memory Studies for free if you so want, and we will continue that collaboration. Among us is also that we have a special issue edited each year by the MSA of Memory Studies. And traditionally, this happens after the conference. Then I don't know if you're aware of the book series that we are editing, Worlds of Memory, which is a Burkhan series. So if you have exciting book projects and you want to submit it, then you can consider to submit it to the series. And we are happy to have a look at your manuscript or at the manuscript proposal. Then we have a first book award that was handed out already a couple of times, also this year. And this is really an award for young scholars who've published their first book. Every year we've had incredible submissions and always a really difficult task to choose the winner. So this year was already announced, and there's a panel basically presenting the book. And we also have a best paper prize, which is again something that grows out of the conference to a certain extent. So all chairs got the instruction to please look out for really good papers, which will be nominated, and then we will choose the best paper prize. We can go to the next slide. So important for you to know maybe as well, I don't know if you notice it, but we, since last year, have the website, some pages in a lot of different languages. And the nice thing is that this was something that grew out of, well, the members really, who all said we would like to have the website in different languages, and quite a number of you volunteered to translate this. So what you see here is the main landing page of what is Memory Studies, what is the Memory Studies Association doing, etc. So the basic information, which we have, I can't remember in how many languages, but quite a number, as you can see on the slide on the top there. So if you go to our website and you want to check out the information in your language, then you can do that. We have not translated the whole web page in different languages simply because, of course, it's a dynamic web page, which is changing constantly. It would be really complicated to keep on translating it. But the main information is in these different languages. The idea being, of course, that we want to be as inclusive as possible, and language should not really be a hindrance for people to join. The other part on the website that is important to highlight is the resources. I think a lot of you might never have looked at it, but it's worth doing. We have to keep on updating it. We have to admit that sometimes we are not as fast as we would like to, but it's certainly worth looking regularly at the resources and see what is there, starting from, for example, book discounts, uploaded lectures, etc. And it's one of the ideas to really further expand this and make it more attractive. So it's one of our big building sites. If you have ideas, or if you are particularly website savvy, then we are quite happy if you come up to us and maybe want to help us with this. We are always really glad if there's ideas coming from the members or people who are very good at that and would like to contribute. The other interesting resource is the membership directory. Again, something that is particularly useful if you're looking for colleagues for a book project or for a grant application, and you'd like to know if there's someone working in your field. You can put in filters so that you can see if there's someone working in your topic area or in your geographic area, for example. So that might be interesting if you want to get into direct contact with someone. So yeah, I know we all are at some point of time not really looking at the website anymore because we somehow assume that there's not much new on it, but it's really worth checking once in a while what is new, especially because there's a lot more in terms of resources than it might look like on the surface. And we're also quite present on social media. Our two assistants are particularly good in posting things there. So if you don't want to look at things on the website and you just want to get an overview of what is new, then you can obviously follow us on Facebook and on Twitter and see what's happening there. So we are trying to get all the new information, not only out via email, but also via social media. There's also a YouTube channel. That's maybe something interesting specifically for the DMSA, which I will talk about later. But again, there's also the recordings of the past conferences. So if you were not at the last conferences and you want to look at a specific keynote, then you can look at our YouTube channel. Now, professional development is again one of the big building sites. We are particularly interested in supporting young scholars. So there was a big MSA Forward program that has been running now for 3 years. I think this is the third year it's running, which is addressed to young scholars. The idea being that young scholars get a specific program just before the general conference where they can discuss their ongoing research and can also look for senior colleagues to comment on their work. Then we are interested in attracting especially young scholars to workshops that are specifically designed for them, but where young scholars and older scholars are getting together. We find it particularly important that we don't separate young scholars and say, well, you get your own little program and then the conference is only for the more senior colleagues. That's not what we want, but we really want to have a mix here. And to that end, we also introduced a mentorship program a couple of years ago, which is one of the things that really have to be relaunched a little bit. And that's also one of the things where we really would like to have your input and also your, if you want to get involved, then it would be really great if you could just come up to us and say, I'd like to participate in the mentorship program. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, the DMSA is something new that grew out of Corona. So that's the Digital Memory Studies Association. I think many of you have probably followed this. We have about 8 events per year. And these are really round tables, for example, discussions of memory scholars on specific topics. So on the right here, you see the very first poster that we had, which was a round table on monuments and memory politics. Since then, we've had, I think we've organized 6 more, if I'm not mistaken. So roughly every once or every 1 to 2 months. We have an event. And the idea really was that during the pandemic, we wanted to continue our discussions despite the fact that we couldn't meet in person. And that's why we organized this. There's an archive that's online. So again, something on the website. If you've missed one of the sessions, then you can just look back at it. And we are particularly interested in proposals by you. So if you have ideas on what you would like to organize, then you can fill out a submission form on the website indicating what topic you'd like to address and which kind of scholars you'd like to invite. And then we can proceed in organizing this. So I think this was one of the new, quite successful projects that we've started last year and that we're going to continue, hoping that the pandemic will soon be over, but the DMSA will certainly continue despite things going back to normal. Okay, next slide. Yeah, and this is the last project I'd like to introduce, which is the Contested Histories project. That is a grant we won by the European Commission. It's financed by the European Commission. and it's called Contested Histories on Site. It's a partner project between the MSA and Euroclio. And it just started really. We had the first event last week as a pre-event to the Warsaw conference. The first event actually was supposed to take place in Warsaw. Obviously, we couldn't do that, so we also had to move it online. We will have to see if the next events can be in person or also have to be online. But basically, it's a project that runs for 18 months and covers 4 events. This is a project that is supposed to address contested history places. So 4 places that are particularly contested. And the idea really is that we come up with a toolkit on how to give guided tours on these sites, how to address them in teaching, for example, and how to talk about them more widely speaking. The European Commission is interested in getting as many citizens involved as possible. That is the aim of the project, really, to spread the word as widely as possible and get as many people as possible involved. And so if you're interested in that, then please join us in one of our next events. This will be in Estonia, in Tallinn, again, probably online. Then we have in December, one in Italy, in Bolzano. And the last one will be in Madrid, closing the circle a little bit in the Valley of the Fallen. Many of you have been there during the Madrid conference. So again, something that you can get involved in and could follow if you want. With this, I'm handing over to, I think Sarah is talking next. Is that right? Oh, no, sorry.
No, it's
it's our next conference. So I'm going to hand over to our next conference organizer.
Okay, I'm Jian Lim. I'm the local organizer of the next year's MSA conference in Seoul. On the left side is this landscape of Seoul, perhaps a photo taken from any top of the building. The next year's conference will be held under the theme of solidarity. You know, I'm a little bit polarized, so what else can I choose beyond the solidarność for the theme of the MSA conference in Seoul? But we know that solidarity is not the linear. It is really it left traces of the crooked lines and lots of holes. It's really porous, but despite that, we need to know on the possibility of making mnemonic solidarity among memory studies scholars. And you know, the Korea, many of young generations know Korea through the K-pop or K-drama or K-cinemas, but Korea is a very rich soil for memory studies because of its very tragic history in 20th century. It has suffered from the colonial atrocities under Japanese colonial rule. Then there was a civil war, and the Korea was divided into Red Army's zone and the American armies. So 2 occupation armies were occupying Korea after 1945. Then we had the civil war. In between, we had lots of political genocides in both South and North Korea. And also we have had 2 different dictatorships, a right-wing military dictatorship in the South and the communist dictatorship in the North. So it's a very unique country which actually experienced 2 different opposite dictatorships simultaneously. So in that sense, Korea is a very rich soil for promoting memory studies. So, and please come to us, and hopefully we can hold this conference offline. So, and then it's after Madrid conference, I hope all the members of MSA can get together face to face in Seoul. And also Seoul is a very good place to play. And you know, this I said the food and drink are cheap, and also people are relatively very kind and also very safe. So I do hope all of us can enjoy the next year's conference in Seoul 2022. Thank you.
It's my turn, I think. Thank you. We are very much looking to be all together in Seoul for real, I hope. So nice to meet you all. So I didn't take part this year to the work of the MSA, but my colleague asked me to speak a little bit at this members meeting as about first the way you can get involved. So I see in the chat that we have a lot of questions, interest. We are all going to discuss this lively in a few minutes. But before, I want to sum up a little bit what has been said in terms of how precisely you can get involved in the MSA. So first, you can participate in or create a working or regional group or national networks. Again, as Anna has been replying some of you in the chat, all the information can be found on the website and how it works, etc. And please do not hesitate to write to us for any ideas, suggestions you may have. You can also run for election. As you saw in Jenny's presentation, we try to be as democratic as possible. So we have a lot of election, yes, but it's for the good. So we really hope that you will run for these elections. Each of the committees are very interested. I've been a part of some of them, so I can testify about that for real. So please run. You can also, of course, and you are all, I guess, be an active member of the community, share ideas. Again, we try to have ideas. We're trying to brainstorm, all of us, in some of these committees, but of course, we would very much like to hear more about your ideas, your needs, and how we can move the MSA forward. As Aline presented, we have the mentorship program, so you can be a mentor. So if you are a member of the MSA and you feel that you want to mentor someone, please step up. And of course, if you want to be mentored, again, you have a special page on the website. You can ask what you need, and we will try to find the most suitable person for you. Of course, you can also speak about the MSA in your countries, disciplines, professional associations. We are all coming from subfield. I'm coming from political science, sociology, history, and as you hear, from France. So I try to speak of the MSA in my everyday academic life. And so please do not hesitate to do the same. As far as the DMSA is concerned, as Aline told you, you can suggest some ideas. We will try to have several sessions during the year. Your ideas are welcome. And again, you can write to the website. We have a special address for it. And do not hesitate to suggest things. And of course, as we just heard, we are going to have a great conference in Seoul. So we are really counting on you to participate, to suggest panel, workshop, etc. And I saw in the chat that we had some question about digital version, possible digital version of the Seoul conference. We will discuss that in a moment. So this is how to get involved. And as a conclusion, I also wanted to, if you can move to the next slide, to list some of the current and future challenges. So for that, we don't have answer yet. We try to have some, and we started to address some of these challenges, but it's still a work in progress. So I really want to make sure that it was clear for everyone that all you've seen of the work being done at the MSA is done with very, very little money and resources. So we are still a small team, and we have only 2 assistants who are paid to work at the MSA for a very small amount of hours a week. So we need to find some ways to have a more permanent team, because it's very, very a lot of work to do that. So for that, we need, for that and for expanding the activity of the MSA, we need to find new funding opportunities and ideas to be able to do more work altogether. The other challenge, and we just experiences, to do sustainable conferences, and to try to balance between the need we have to all gather at some points, because we are all from everywhere around the globe, but also to do that in sustainable ways. So please, again, do not hesitate to bring some ideas on how to do that. We thought that the MSA could be one way. Maybe we thought also recently of organizing a book club, or so. Please do not hesitate to contribute also about that. The next challenge is the one of equality, diversity, inclusion, and anti-racism, which we have started to address, and we are going to do more. We are currently coming with some proposition of actions all together in the president's group, and with our colleague from the advisory board, Ramisai Sharumbira, and we are going to come with a plan very soon about that too, to move forward on this issue. And last point, which is very important to me, the one of memory studies in many languages. So you saw the website. Actually, when I was some years ago a member of the executive committee, I started this action, trying to ask some of the MSA members to contribute with their own language. So as I said, I come from France. Here in my country, and also in academia, not everyone speaks English. And some of my colleagues do not speak English well enough to feel at ease to participate in some conferences, or to submit, for example, book in English to the book award. So I really want to try to find new solution to really make some more room for other languages in the way the MSA work, and maybe to create some additional book award in this matter too. Thank you. So now we are going to have a discussion. Anna has been and is still dealing with the chat. So Anna.
Yes, thanks, Sarah, for handing over to me. And as you've all seen, the chat is already quite lively, or the questions in the chat are turning up quite frequently. So I would like to open the floor and ask you for questions and comments. I think the best idea is that you post a cue into the chat in case of a question. Because if you use the raise hand function, it's going to be an alphabetic list and not, necessarily in the right succession. So if you would just type a Q into the chat window, then I will be happy to call upon you. But Carolina Aguilera has already raised her hand, so perhaps you might want to start. Carolina?
Maybe.
Thank you.
Ah, there you are.
Yeah, okay. Yes, the moderator needs to give people the access to the microphone. So for the next person. Thank you very much for the presentation. Very complete. I wanted also to add that the changes in the bylaws were I think it was a very good idea as well, and that the regional and working groups have been much more get involved in the MSA, and I think this has been very productive as well. And I think that maybe with the advisory board, maybe this is a good way to get to more people that are not English speakers and not European based or US based, because just a quick look at the advisory board, I've seen mostly people from Europe or from US. Maybe this is a way to open the MSA as well. I don't know, it's just an idea, but I think to open MSA to other languages, it's a key issue, and we have post this this aspect several times. Thank you very much.
Okay, any responses to that? Okay. There's another raised hand, and I hope that I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Tebessum Yilmaz, please. And you should be able to unmute yourself right now. Yeah.
That was quite a good pronunciation, to be honest. Thank you. Yeah, when we were at the Doing Memory Differently session, many people, including myself, we also raised and discussed the issue of languages and English-speaking academia part. So just an idea, I live in Germany, but I don't speak German. So it's always a huge deal for me to be able to access platforms. And of course, this wasn't something that I was aware of before. So I was thinking maybe we could think about an idea to come with, let's say, an easy language, easy accessible version of the website, even if we cannot, let's say, provide in every language or multiple languages all the time, we can maybe have something like this that wouldn't scare off or scare away people. That was one thing. And the other one was, again, in the same session when we were at Doing Memory Differently, the discussion was just so lovely. And I was one of the ones, we just couldn't leave it there, and came up with the idea of maybe creating a working group specifically for the issues that we discussed on that day. So already some people got in contact with me for creating that group, and I just want to share it here once again. If anyone is interested, we are really looking forward to doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. We are not reacting because we are writing down all these good ideas, and we will take that into account. But to leave more space for people to react. It's not because we don't care. We do care. Anna, you can go on.
Right, I'm just gonna read out a comment that Victoria made in the chat. I hope the MSA is also looking at accessibility in terms of disability within the inclusivity work. I appreciate the very small team and the enormous work you all do, but I think there is still lots of work to do in relation to making the digital and in-person meetings more accessible and providing some helpful guidelines for presenters how to make their talks more accessible to a wide range of individuals. Yes, and I will also read out a comment that has just disappeared by Belarus Zatzman. Is it possible to have a live transcription made available? I know that it is not always accurate, but it would make the MSA sessions much more accessible. Perhaps you can also put that on the list. And Inge wants to know if we can say more about the idea of that group for those who weren't able to join the panel. Tebessum, I'm sorry. That was directed at Tebessum.
If you want to see more word about that.
Sure. So actually, Jenny and many others were on that session on the day. Some of the topics that I can easily come up with, one of them was the mental health, and while doing memory studies, because many of us also working on really demanding and traumatic topics as well. And at the same time, yeah, of course, the language was one of the topics we discussed, because many of us, actually, we are not native speakers, and to kind of survive in the English-speaking academia, we always have to learn another language and also learn all the academic traditions in that given context. And we raised some issues regarding that. And another one was about being a workaholic and how we try to always readjust ourselves with the time limitations. But again, if you are not a native speaker, you don't get the right to say no, or if you're a young scholar, or if you are someone with a disabled mind or body, it's basically a luxurious option to say no to some publications or conferences. So basically, one of the ideas of that day came up is like, why don't we just have a group and to discuss those things? And especially if you're a woman or identify yourself within the under the rainbow flag or something, it may even add additional pressure on what we are already going through. It. So basically, yeah, we just thought that it would be nice to have a group that is discussing doing memory differently.
All right. Barbara Ronchetti has raised her hand. Please take over the floor.
Okay, thank you. First of all, an ovation of thanks for the organization of this conference, which is fantastic, despite the fact that the situation is that we already know very well. And to the local committee, to the MSA, I think that you are doing a great job in any sense. I mean, everything is fantastic, almost perfect, even though we know perfection is not interesting, but still. And then two short remarks or information. The first is, I think that my co-chair in the working group is somewhere in the space here, and Radmila from the Olomouc University in Czech Republic, together with Anna Green from New Zealand Victoria University, who is not here for different reasons, but she is with us also. And we have this newly established family memories and intergenerational exchange working group, and so we had a fantastic session in this conference, and so we will very happy to have whoever is interested in our work, and so contact us, and we'll be proud of being together. And the second fact is related with memory, family memory studies, and the relevance of different languages, because of course this is an issue very, very important for family and personal memories, which are basically close and in an intimate relationship with the mother tongue or the language of the intimacy. And so this linguistic aspect will be worked on also by our group. And related to both these aspects of our shared field of study, I wonder if it will be possible, of course, slowly, to build sort of net of the many archives, collected data, sources already available that I heard in this conference, and I already heard in Madrid, and I know existing in all our different small groups, in order to have this sort of map of memory studies archive. And it will be in different languages, of course, and it will help to map the diversity inside the association. It's a huge work, of course, I understand very well, but we can start thinking about it and slowly start projecting this possibility. And thanks again. That's it.
Thank you, Barbara. Any more questions? Comments or?
Sorry, Still, Barbara, if possible, a very specific question. Is now possible to ask for publishing on the website of the MSA some material, something already done by different working groups or single member? Not as a scientific publication, of course, but as a report or just a wide information, not just the information. I know that the information is possible to announce. I always follow your updates.
Maybe I can say something. So anyone can send us things to publish on the front page of the website. As it's grown, it sort of means that you have to scroll down a bit to the news items. But if you have a conference or a workshop or a publication to announce, you can just send it to us and we'll post it there. Also, this is something that lots of people have been working on in the background, which is to make websites for the working groups and regional groups that they can access directly. It was quite a problem because of data privacy issues that I won't get into. So it's taken us a lot longer than we would have liked. But I believe that is going to be available pretty soon. A web designer is working on those individual pages. So then if you're in a working group, you can just also post directly to that. And of course, there's our Facebook page, our Twitter account. We have both an official Facebook page, but also a members group where anyone can post. So I think there are lots of opportunities. So yeah, anything you want to, let everybody know, just send it to us.
And the question is also in different language from English?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right. Tito von Inyang, you've raised your hand.
Yeah, thank you very much. First, I want to congratulate the MSA for a fantastic conference. I have attended a number of conferences and actually it was one of the best organized. A lot of anxiety for me. My question is also related to the idea of language and translation, and I was wondering whether there's a forum already, and if not, if one could be established where members can reach across to other members to collaborate on the issue of access. So what I mean here is listening to the different presentations. Some of the presenters give links or present materials on what they are working on, and you go ahead and read the text and you find out that the sources they are referencing are in a language you cannot read. So I find this fantastic concept and idea. I'm like very excited to go and check it out, and I find out that it's in French or in Spanish or any other such language. And that's, at least at the present, until I can learn French or Spanish, closes the door on being able to more closely engage with that concept. So I was wondering whether there is a forum or possibility of collaboration where diversity that we have here can be leveraged so that members can reach across such linguistic divides in being able to access materials, even if it's something as basic as maybe translating a part of the text. Doesn't matter. Anyhow, that could be arranged. Just a way of transcending that linguistic divide that come from trying to engage each other's work and finding the door of language literally slammed on your face. Thank you.
It's a great concept. It's like a language stock exchange or something like that. So yeah, I don't know, because I've not practiced this for some time, but I don't know if the directory, we can indicate which language do we speak and where we're willing to be contacted. For example, it could be one way to do that, like to be able to search people according to their language capacity, skills, and if they gave their authorization to be contacted in this perspective. And yeah, maybe, okay, we are going to think about that. Good idea, thank you.
Thank you.
Magdalena Saryusz-Wolska is next on my list.
Yeah, directly to that, because I had the idea when I candidated to the executive committee to organize something like, let's say, the digital MSA to discuss contributions that are published in small languages and make them accessible to other colleagues, like people who read, let's say, in Polish, Spanish, Portuguese, might discuss the newest contributions and make them accessible in a way to colleagues who don't speak these languages. So this was more or less also my idea, and I hope to be able in future to organize such meetings. For example, in the digital MSA format, so that we can discuss things that happen in other languages and are not accessible to everybody.
So maybe, Magdalena, you will be in charge of this kind of issue in the executive committee. So you found one of your...
Yeah, I'd love to, because it's a big issue, a language diversity.
Yeah, and actually I thought maybe if we, for example, if we implement book club, we could have a book club around a book published in another language, and some people who can read this language can discuss it in the language,
because it's
in
not
another language. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not possible to translate everything. Translations are extremely expensive, both written and also live translations. But I think we can use the resources we have, and we have people speaking, I don't know in how many languages, but I think we can count it, but many languages. So I thought about using this resource and sort of sharing the knowledge between us.
And Anne just put, you want to read it, Anna?
Yeah, there's one question that Luz just reiterated of sorts because she needed to leave. So if permitted, I would start with this one. It was in Madrid, it was discussed that the engaged activist and political dimension or potential of the MSA, and we made an action or communication to support the Turkish colleagues. A few weeks later, a letter against human rights abuses in Colombia and Brazil from the regional group was uploaded to the website. But I'd like this engaged character of the MSA to be reinforced. Are there any ideas regarding this issue? Is this a personal concern, or is it shared by any other members?
You want to react, Jenny? Precisely today, we had one of our colleagues who couldn't take place in a roundtable precisely because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, we for example, got engaged a few months ago with a statement of solidarity with the Polish scholars of the Holocaust who are being sued in Poland. That statement, I believe, is still on our website. So we have done that, and it is something that's important to us. It is challenging, though, because, as you all know, these sorts of things happen all over the world all the time, and we are just a small team, and it is very difficult to. I mean, we sometimes react, but of course, in an ideal world, we would sort of be less reactive and more proactive. And to be honest, we just don't have the capacity to do that, and we also don't have, I think, always the knowledge that is needed for these kinds of engagements. So it's something that we discuss a lot, and we certainly want to hear from everybody, especially those of you who are specifically concerned with that. So it's sort of an open conversation, but it's not an easy thing, right? We sort of can't say, yes, we do that all the time, if you see what I mean. So yeah, it's definitely something to keep talking about. I don't know if somebody else wants to come in on that.
I would say that sometimes when you see very important related issues, you can also do not hesitate to contact us and because we are all in our small world, even if we try not to. And so we will then try to react at that point if you solicitate us to.
Yeah, and actually just to add, and I should have done that, Joanna just put in the chat, so you can see there one of our important members who was supposed to be at our roundtable on memory and neoliberalism today, Saygun Gökçe. He could not join us today because he's involved in protests at Boğaziçi University in Istanbul, and he's being targeted by the authoritarian university administration there. So Joanna posted a link there that explains what's going on, and obviously we're engaged with that. But again, it's it's a member we know very well, so in that case, it's sort of easier for us to do something. Obviously, in solidarity or in cooperation with those people who are involved. We've also tried to help another incarcerated colleague in Turkey, who is a Canadian, but who's been imprisoned in Turkey. So we have done things like that, but yeah, we sort of depend on you to get engaged on those issues.
Yes, and just to again pick up on the chat and the very nice idea that Anne Rigney has posted there. She suggested that we might do a year's work in memory studies with delegates from different countries, writing a short report every year on what has been published and what has been probably worked on and done. And a great number of people who second that idea and thought. So perhaps
and maybe the national and regional branch can be instrumental in doing that, I would say, as a starting point.
The network of global historians are doing this, but every 5 years, not every year. Every year is too much. So every regional group working on the global history in Europe, Africa, in Asia, they are making report every 5 years whenever we have that meeting. So then this every 5 years, the network of global historians are making a report about the past and present of global history writings in different regions. That's one but the second one is actually I made a proposal in in a certain other meeting here. What about making a glossary in local languages regarding memory studies? For example, if one conceptual word regarding memory studies in Polish can be paralleled very easily with other Slavic languages, but also those conceptual words and plus with English translation. Also, any East Asian a conceptual term may be recorded in the classic Chinese that can be shared by the Asian scholars, but also we can put the English translation. So every year, if in the end of every year, if we can make certain about 100 or 200 glossaries regarding the memory studies, it can give a certain mapping about how the memory studies has been developing in different regions. So making glossary might be much easier than making the report of all the memory studies products, in a sense. It's a suggestion.
Thank you. And Rigney, you've raised your hand, right? Or
yeah, thanks. I have to think through this idea. But I'm pleased that people have been picking up on it. I think it comes from two concerns. One is the question of more multilingualism, which I totally support. As being a native speaker of English myself, I'm aware of this huge advantage, but also the huge sort of blinkers that it imposes. The other question is, I think it would be great to have within the association more of a sense of not so much progression in the sense that we're going towards an ultimate truth, but a sense that we might sort of take stock every so often of how far we've come and what are the new developments. And so my suggestion was to maybe bring those two together in having this idea of a regularly taking stock. And it doesn't have to necessarily to be in the form of a report, because I don't think we should get ourselves involved in too much work all the time. But another version of it might be to have a session every year at the conference where we have this sort of taking stock. But it could take multiple forms. It was I'm pleased to hear there's some support for it. But obviously there are things that have to be worked out yet. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Sang-hyun, please do ask your question if you want.
Right, I have a question or suggestion about the conference fee. I know this needs more discussion and we can't really decide on this today, but just an idea. At the moment, we have two types of conference fee, early bird and full conference fee. And we offer waivers for low-income participants, right? Perhaps we may consider adopting a more elaborate differentiated fee systems. For instance, in the case of the Society of Social Studies of Science, 4S, it's an international academic society of STS. They have 12 different types of conference fee. Now, first, they divide countries into 3 different regions, X, Y, Z. Then 4 categories are also introduced, precariously employed and students, postdoctoral fellows and other fixed-term contracted positions, professors and fully employed professionals, and societies and institutions. So 3 multiplied by 4 would be 12, right? So Forest is organizing an online annual meeting this October. And if you're from the region X, including most of North American and European countries, it also includes Japan, Korea, and so on, the early registration fee will be $75 US if you are students or precariously employed, $100 USD for postdoctoral fellows and other fixed-term contract positions, and $200 USD for professors and fully employed professionals. But if you're from the region Z, I don't remember which countries in that category, the fees will be $30, $40, and $75 respectively. So, there's quite a bit of difference there. And it's a little bit too complicated. So I'm not sure whether we're going to go as far as that, but we may introduce somewhat simpler differentiated fee system. I'm just wondering how you think. Another thing is that whether we are going to, I'm just curious whether we are going to have a non-presenter, non-member conference fee for an offline conference as well. We do have that fee for Warsaw conference. I'm not sure whether we're going to have it for an offline conference. If it exists, it'll help students who do not give presentation at the meeting quite a bit, but I'm not sure whether it's workable. Anyway, so just wondering how you think.
Thanks, Sang-hyun. And Jenny has just responded in the chat. Yes, we did have non-presenters kind of walk-in fees, if you so want, right? Yeah, and the rest, I guess, we'll have to discuss in more detail within the framework of an EC meeting or something like that. But next on my list is Utito Fon again.
Yeah, so another quick question relating to the comment just made about students and their precarity. So I myself, I'm a PhD student, completing my dissertation. And I was wondering whether the MSA has a graduate student association, and if not, whether there might be a necessity to have one. And this is not just a desire to have further split units. I know I missed participating in the MSA Forward program, which I really wish I could, but I know that in some other organizational bodies that I belong to, the Graduate Students Association provides this, units where people with particularly unique experience, as we all know, when they're in grad school, there's a particular set of struggles, anxieties, challenges that you face, and it might be a space for people who are currently, engaging in that kind of situation to come together and even to reach across. So, for example, I find information about position, say in Poland, and I want to get the perspective of a fellow grad student about it. That kind of interaction might be made possible under those circumstances. So I was just wondering if there is one already, that would be excellent. I'd like to join, but if not, whether it would be a good idea to think about having one.
Can I maybe respond, Hannah? I think that's a fantastic idea. We don't have one, but actually, because we do have the annual MSA Forward, and one of the things we found is that there isn't a lot of continuities. That's a great thing for people to do, but then if they, they sometimes maybe stay in touch on a personal level. But I think you're right that there needs to be something that's more continuous, to just have a forum to talk to each other, but also to represent the interests of graduate students in the association, and maybe to be more involved in organizing the MSA Forward and the mentorship program, because it's always been a different group of people. And so every time we've sort of reinvented the wheel a little bit. So I think that's great. I think maybe we can talk about that if you want to. Obviously, always, if you have an idea like that, you always get asked to help do it, right? But maybe we can talk about that later. I think that's great. And I can see in the chat that lots of other people would be interested too.
Yeah, thanks. Jonna, would you then like to pick up the mic?
Yes, just a fee question. I'm sorry, because a storm has started in Warsaw, so that's why I'm so dark right now. Because we obviously discussed the fee question, and also we look at the other organization, the big associations. They have the structure as you have just suggested for Seoul, which is more developed for the regions of the world and so on. But on the other hand, it really gets complicated when you think about the intra-region inequalities between the scholars. So, even in Poland itself, there would be researchers who have a big, let's say, EU grant project from which they can fund themselves and their PhD students to actually go to a conference. And then you would have scholars which have the same professor positions, which cannot really pay the fee because their research is not being supported. And then there is this, the border, the intra-country difference, if within East Central Europe, so like the Czechs, they earn more than Poles, so it's easier for them also to support the research. And I think it's even more complicated in other regions of the world. So I think what we still should do in the MSA is to really try to support as many of the early career researchers and also of those senior scholars who cannot afford to pay the fee with waivers or like half waivers and so on, and really ask the more senior and richer scholars or the people who have grant projects and have better salaries and better support from the research universities to pay higher fees, because otherwise it will get really, really complicated. But well, I might be wrong, but we really did discuss these issues last year.
I'd like to add to that point if I can.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Because I was working in the waivers committee also for this conference, and we received a lot of waivers requests also from scholars from so-called A countries because of the pandemic. So that's also a factor that really changed a lot. People got funds cut and could not start the jobs which they were promised, and so on and so on. So the waivers committee, which consists mainly of the ethics committee and 2 colleagues from the local committee, they had a lot of thoughts how to establish good criteria, and I think maybe that would be a job for the next executive committees meetings to invite colleagues from the ethics committee and to discuss that, because actually it's a quite tricky and complicated question, and there are many factors, not just regional or early late careers, but also many others.
Maybe just to pick up something from the chat that just come up, Aniston said rightly that Jeff coordinated a seminar, basically an international graduate seminar on memory studies, which everything I heard about it was really great. So maybe that's also something for the graduate group to talk about, whether that would be something that we could try to make into a more permanent, not permanent, but recurring event or a course or whatever. Of course, it was a lot of work, so we'll have to figure out how to do it. But Jeff's just saying he's going to do it again. So there you go. Yeah. Back to you, Hannah.
Sorry, I'm multitasking. Anyway, Nila, I'm going to answer your question in a second. There are more questions and comments. Will the announcement be made on the MSA page? Oh yeah, Jeff's already responding.
I think Misha wants to say something.
Oh, please go ahead, Misha.
Just very quickly on the funding issue, just an additional idea. I think there are foundations specializing in different regions of the world that might be willing to provide funding to bring in scholars specifically from their regions of specialization. And I know that we had a conversation about one such foundation specifically dedicated to Eurasia that was willing to do so for Charlottesville, which then obviously didn't happen. But I think one interesting task for all of us might be to look for such foundations in the various regions that we're working in or with, and try to put them in touch with the MSA. And they, some of them might even be willing to do this on an ongoing basis, which obviously wouldn't solve the problem structurally for everyone, but it might take some of the pressure off the overall budget.
Yeah, it was. Thank you, Misha, for that. And if you have some ideas about these foundations or other people who have concrete info about that, do not hesitate to write. And actually, it was also this kind of foundation. Some of them also work not only about people traveling, but also about translating. So one of the tasks we wanted to consider in the future months is to go to contact this kind of foundations, possibly to try to also help sub-translations. Magdalena, actually like we maybe to create other types of book awards with books in another language, possibly. So again, if you have some ideas about this kind of foundations, please share, and we will try to contact them and make it happen.
Thank you, Sarah. More questions and comments. 2 new messages.
I think there are 2 different, well, maybe 3 or 4 different things going on here, so they're getting a bit confused. I think there's been a proposal to have a graduate student group and a separate postdoc group, and also possibly, or this is what Jeff is organizing, a recurring seminar, a transnational virtual and partly on-site seminar on memory studies. So lots of different things one could do. And then, of course, there's a proposal from Tibisum at the beginning to have a working group or whatever group on basically the issues we raised at the Doing Memory Studies Differently roundtable. So work, burnout, exclusion, and things like that.
Okay. There are no more questions.
I think several remarks were related to the will to have an hybrid event next time. So we don't have answer to that. You want to say a few words about that, Jenny, or because you're more?
No, I'm just saying Jana has her hand up. She wanted to say.
Okay.
There are two hands up actually now.
Go on, Joanna.
Yeah, I think there is one more thing for a more general consideration when we consider on-site, hybrid, and online format. It is an environment, and it's more, the research shows more and more, it's not that the online conferences are really environment friendly. So we really create a pressure on environment right now with all that information we stock on the servers, with all the recording we have. We are obviously really proud of that, what we gathered there, and we want to have it as an archive, at least for a year. But then if we add to that, I mean, when we travel, we obviously, pollute the environment too. And when we organize the hybrid conferences, taking advantages of both. So it's storing the information and having the on-site conference, it will actually create the double pressure on environment. So I don't have a solution, but it's really something we also need to think about when designing future conferences. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joanna. And Jessica, you raised your hand.
Yes, hi everyone. It's nice to see you. I just got the idea, and I'm really sorry if you have already talked about it because I was just gone for a few minutes. But would it be possible to kind of announce on the website, sorry, if you want to kind of make a big application where you need some more partners around the world? Would that be, I mean, if there's a project which is related, of course, only to memory studies, would that be something to put on the website or yeah, that's my question.
I think absolutely that's exactly what these forums are for, right? So if you want to make a call for collaborators, that would be great.
Which forms? Sorry, I'm so uninformed, so I don't even know which forms you mean.
So, well, I don't know. I think actually that you would reach the most people via social media, but you can also send us an email and post something on the MSA website. Okay. And under the news item, or if if your project has a particular angle to it, then maybe the working groups, regional groups are a good place to go.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say, because I think that this whole discussion of sustainability and accessibility is really important, but also really, really tricky, right? Because we're balancing all kinds of different issues like, wanting to make the conference as accessible as possible for everyone, and including maybe by offering hybrid or online parts to it, making it sustainable, also that that works towards that, but also I think have to say that every conference team so far, from Amsterdam to Copenhagen, Madrid, and now Warsaw, has come very close to burnout. These conference teams are, it is a huge burden to organize a conference like this. So first of all, of course, that deserves a huge, a giant thank you once again to everybody who's done it so far, including, of course, the Warsaw team. But I think we need to be careful with, like, obviously these are all important things, but sometimes we can't do everything. And for example, organizing a hybrid conference is much harder than organizing either an online or an on-site conference. So we somehow need to find a balance between all of these things. And for my part, I also think it's quite important that we don't split a conference between, you know, those people who can come and those people who can't come socially, because you know, we want to be able to gather and talk to each other. So how that is best done, I really don't know the answer, but just to raise it, that this is, you know, our own mental and health in general is also an issue. And by our own, I just mean all of us together as a community.
And that's why some of the suggestions on the chat was to try to have more events, digital at some point during the year, not to have the conference as an hybrid one, but maybe to move forward from the already very successful DMSA event and maybe have more. If we do the book club, it can be one, and other, we can also have a graduate conference or something. I don't know. So we will try to find some ideas on this path. Jeff, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just want to remind people of the model that we're using for the location of the conferences. I mean, obviously it's a work in progress. We've debated back and forth whether it should be every year or every 2 years. We debate as where the conference should be. And so the model we've got right now is in alternate years, we have maybe a slightly larger meeting and a slightly smaller meeting. We're going to try to move, or Jenny and Aileen and I will be moving out of the leadership over the next couple of years. But the idea is to keep the conference moving around so that if you can't afford to make it in 1 year because it's halfway around the world, that you would be able to afford the following year because it's closer by. So we're thinking about how many people can get there by train or car or whatever, and how many people need a rocket ship. So, but of course, that's also compounded with the issue of where and who can organize these conferences, because again, they're an enormous undertaking. But we appreciate very much the input, and I could just promise you that if you knew how many hours we had spent looking at globes and maps and prices in universities, thinking about who will be able to get there and what will happen the year after. So just be assured that it's very much on our agenda. Thank you.
I think Joanna wanted to say words regarding a comment on the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Philip, for raising that issue. And well, I think that boycotting is actually not the good measure to fight with the far-right government or any other kind of governments which we do not like. Because if you boycott something, then you leave the people behind, which might actually need international support or even a discussion. So I neither think the economic boycott, neither the participating boycott is a good choice. But I also hope, and I don't know if you encountered that, but I also hope that we actually created a venue for discussion and for the free discussion of the any political and any other ideological issues would like to raise. So I hope that no one felt uncomfortable because was not able to say whatever one think. But if you have a different perceptions, then please tell us. Thank you.
Yes. No, thank you. Thank you very much for your response. I wanted to raise the point, and I think it's important to keep the debate open, but I trust your judgment because I don't live in Poland. I once been in Poland in 1982. It was the time of Solidarność, and what's happening is depressing. But no, I trust your judgment, but I wanted to raise the issue.
Yeah, and it's certainly a good issue and we should discuss it. But again, I would say that boycotting is not an option because you just leave the scholars or any other practitioners who would like to be involved in conferences like that behind. Thank you.
Thanks. Any more questions, comments?
I think Noga has a question.
Noga has a question.
No, that's just, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, go ahead, please go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank you. It was, I actually started my PhD in Amsterdam in the big conference, and now I'm in the second year of my postdoc, and it's such a huge change and development in the field. But I was wondering, I'm struggling actually with this question. There's so many panels and so many interesting stuff happening today in the conference. But on the other hand, I attended several panels which didn't have big shots names, and maybe it's also connected to the language issues that were just raised. And then there were 14 attendants or 10 attendants, including the panelists. And maybe there's some way to balance the presence of the people between the panels. I don't know. It was just like, on one hand, I was in Michael Rothberg yesterday, which was extremely interesting, but there were 100 and something people. And on the other hand, in this morning, I was on migration and refugees and other interesting stuff, and there were 10 people or 15. So I don't know if there is something to do, because it's also free choice, yeah, but sometimes big names bring big audience. So maybe there's a way also to balance these situations.
Magdalena, I guess that's a reply to that, right?
Yeah, just wanted to explain how we build up the program so that you have an idea. We had about 2/3 of the panels were already pre-constituted panels. So people submitted whole panels, the chair submitted a whole panel. The rest of the panels the rest of the submissions were individual submissions that we built up into panels, and we've primarily looked at thematic coherence. So we didn't look at names, either big or small, or I don't know, we looked at the topics and at the abstracts, and we tried to combine that so that somehow coherent panels would come up at the end. Another issue were the time zones. So once we announced the program, many people said, oh, that's such a nice panel and I'd love to present, but it's 3 a.m. where I live. So please reschedule my paper to another panel. So this is how this program came up at the end. So we really didn't look at how big a name is or so. We had around a little bit less, 900 something submissions. So this is how these 200 something panels came up, and we already asked the panelists to talk 10 minutes, which is, if we let them talk 20 minutes, you would have like 500 panels, and that would be far too many. But of course, we cannot force anyone to sign in as participants, non-speaking participants. So it's voluntary. Maybe it's also a thing about the online conference, because once you travel somewhere, you just go to the panels because you're there once, and when you attend the conference online, you have many other duties, both at your university and at home, and we are very much aware of this. So I think it would be a little bit different if this conference took place on site, but this was just as a clarification how we created the program.
Thank you, and I definitely know you had so many factors to jungle. So it's not criticism. It was just very sad to see some panels that were actually very interesting with so few listeners. So
Utitophone, please go ahead and speak.
Yeah, this is a rather very basic question, but there was a comment made in the chat about web hosting fees. And then I suddenly wanted to ask, the recordings that are going to be posted to the conference website and the website itself, because as a person, I'm still trying to navigate through. I was wondering how long those are going to be available and the website still open. Is there going to be a time frame after which they might not be available anymore? Because if there is such, I would need to kind of be more proactive in how I make sure I get access to all the different fascinating panels.
Just to answer, they will be available for at least 1 year, probably longer, but now we've contracted 1 year.
Thank you.
And also all the panels that we're streaming live, those are just on our YouTube channel forever, I think, and all the DMSA panels are there as well, and they're open to the public, so you don't have to log in anywhere to see them. Obviously, that's not everything, but at least it's something.
If I can add that I happen to be a discutant in a session organized by Wolfgang Steiner, and we were very few attending the session. So please don't think it's only an issue of names. It's a multiple variables. The panels was very inspiring.
All right. Again, I am trying to wind this down now for the second time. So the question is, are there any last minute statements and comments? Because I think it would be wise to grant us 20 minutes to refresh ourselves before the next grand session is going to happen. And again, if questions might come to your minds later, do not hesitate to contact us via info@memorystudiesassociation.org. We'll be happy to answer all your questions. Just as Christina just said, we have additional comments to add. I'll post the email address in the chat again, and please do send us emails with suggestions and comments. And thanks to everyone for being here and for letting us know what you think about the MSA.
Thank you all. And it's great that so many people came. It's really great.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.